Hello, my name is Francis Evans and I want to talk a little bit about the events around December of this year 2012 and the astrology of this. Now, to begin with, I need to put a framework up as to how I understand how astrology works and how it affects us. So astrology is not about how a planet affects people by its position, but it's all to do with how the solar wind affects everything inside the solar system, including the magnetosphere of planet Earth, and how the planets themselves affect the solar wind. So the solar wind affected by the positions of the planets affect the magnetosphere, which in turn affects everything magnetic on the planet, including the bodies of water. So in a way, what we're looking at is the effect of the planets on the wind of the sun, of the position of the sun relative to planet Earth. So a lot of people have been talking about the end of the Mayan calendar is on the date of the 21st of December in 2012, which of course is about the time of the solstice, whether that's a summer solstice in the southern hemisphere or a winter solstice in the northern hemisphere. So first of all, I want to point out that that is the sort of time or timing that you would choose if you were planning or predicting many thousands of years in advance. So I want to suggest that if you look at the actual astrology of the time, the timing of it is not the 21st, but the 28th, starting on the 28th of December for a 3-day period, the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st period of time. And if you look at the actual charts, and when I have looked at this, I'm looking, of course, in Auckland, New Zealand, but relative, to the positions of the ascendant and the midheaven and houses and so on, the planets are all in the same relativity to one another. So what we're seeing essentially is the boundaries of the solar system. That is the innermost body, the sun, and its outermost body, Pluto, coming into alignment. Now Pluto is a binary system anyway. It's a system where the planet and its moon are almost identical in size, and so they pose the edge of the dual reality that we exist in, and it's essentially the edge of consciousness as we know it, the edge of the known and the unknown realities, or the conscious world and the unconscious world. So what we're starting to see is that there is an approach that's coming on, and I've chosen this particular moment on the 28th. Of course, New Zealand is the first country in the world to see the date, so for every other country it is at some point in the previous day, 27th. So what we're looking at here is the full moon at this time, and the full moon, that is when the moon is opposing the sun, and in this particular moment also opposing Pluto, or the planet of depth, and it's also in relationship to two of the most significant timing planets in the solar system. In astrology there are two planets which cause timing. That is Saturn, which measures, if you like, the unfolding of a personality, and every cycle of the planet Saturn is approximately 29.5 years, which is where you get the so-called 7-year cycle, which is the quarter, the square, the opposition, and the waxing square coming back to its natal position, or to its original position. So that's the one tiny planet. And the second tiny planet, which is not so much a planet but in this case a trapped comet, is the body known as Chiron. Now Chiron has a cyclic period of between 50 and 51 years, and it affects the way in which, you know, the if you like, the wounding and the healing of planet Earth. So it came into our consciousness around, you know, in the mid 1970s, and it has effectively engaged us up until recent times, when a new body came to be accepted, which is a body known as Eris. And in this time we are effectively under the viewpoint, if you like, or the lens that the consciousness of Eris brings into being. Against all of that, what we need to be looking at is what are the major influencing planets in this period of time. So one of the things that we could look at straight away is we could discover that there's an amazing thing between what Pluto represents and what Saturn represents. So Saturn is the boundary between what can be seen with the physical eye. So in a sense, the boundary of the known universe is within the orbit, if you like, or within the containing orbit of the planet Saturn, and what is in the unconscious, or the consciousness beyond physicality, is bounded by the planet Pluto. So Pluto and Saturn are in a relationship one to another. They're both at a 9 degrees. Pluto rules the sign of Scorpio. Saturn is at 9 degrees Scorpio, and Saturn rules Capricorn, and Pluto is at 9 degrees in Capricorn. So they're in mutual respondence to one another, and they're both in a particular aspect which is known as a quincunx. It's what's called an inconjunct. It's difficult to express exactly what that means, but it is when something is pulled off balance. So it's not as oppositional as a direct opposition, because when two things are opposing, one can essentially balance the two forces. But when one is off kilter, it pulls you away from the spoke, if you like. And when two of these are focused on one specific planet, it's called a finger of God, or rather what it does is it puts the intensity of these two, the two focusing planets together. Now, what Pluto represents is the underworld, and represents intensity. And Saturn and transformation, the ultimate in change, is transformation from one thing to another, transmogrification, or whatever you would like to call it. And Saturn represents the stability, the stable forces, the organisation, the social status and money and those things. And these two are in cahoots together. They are working together and putting their forces onto the planet Jupiter. Now Jupiter is one of the most misunderstood planets in the entire astrological world, because it is seen as if it is the great expansory planet. It is it looks in the sky to be a marker of great beauty. It is certainly the largest body in the solar system, other than the Sun. But in reality, it is an extraordinarily tumultuous planet. When it has a day, it is 6 times bigger than the Earth, and yet its day is only 10 hours long. So the surface speed is incredible, and the storm that has been raging on there for 10,000 years will never cease. Now the thing that is most striking about this is that we have looked up to Jupiter, the king, so-called king of the gods, as if this is the greatest thing going, and yet its biggest marker, its greatest word that describes it is more. This is the planet of more of everything, and the one thing that has brought planet Earth and the social and society to its knees is the incredible desire of all humans and nations for more of everything, more territory, more power, more money, more of everything. And there is eventually a place where there is not enough for everybody to have more. And Jupiter then sits at the point of this finger of God at a marker of 8 degrees and 7 minutes of Gemini. Now, the Sabian symbols are another part of the astrological map, and these were symbols given to Mark Edmund Jones back in the 30s, and they are surprisingly accurate in what they describe. So what you have is you have Jupiter sitting at this 8 degrees 07 minutes, which essentially is the marker of between 8 and 9 degrees Gemini, and the symbol for that particular degree says that it's a quiver filled with arrows. In the end, that breaks down to the need for conquest. So essentially Jupiter is in its phase of grabbing as much as it can by conquest, by war and so on, by whatever means it can have of gaining the upper hand. So these two transformational and stable forces are trying to achieve this at this point. Now, it's just by accident, really, that New Zealand, if you like, the light of the new world, that is, because New Zealand is the beginning of the dateline. Now, and this is another one of those accidental things, is the British in their wisdom drew a nautical dayline or dateline running down through the Pacific that essentially makes New Zealand on one side and the rest of the world on the other. So we are essentially the first light, the first to see daylight of a new day. And so it is that it represents the beginning of a new life, or a new way of being, a new day for all of us. So the smallest, one of the smallest countries with one of the smallest populations, sitting there being a guiding force for the new vision, if you like. So we need to take it into account that the mid-heaven, the point where everything seems to be going, is also on that same Sabian degree. So everything is aligning towards gaining more for everything, for everyone. And it's really important to take that into account, because also at the same time, you know, we have another alignment that brings that into more important aspect, which is where the planet Venus is. Now, Venus, the planet, if you like, the planet of harmony, is in opposition to this. It is not really playing games or playing with it. And Venus's only other aspect is towards or to the planet Eris. So Eris has been in Aries since 19 27 will remain in Aries until March of 2000.